there, everybody. Welcome back to Hail Yes, a Detroit Free Press podcast about University of Michigan athletics. I'm Tony Garcia, Michigan writer for The Freak. Hopefully, no more knocking. Just had to turn away, not room service. What is it? Housekeeping. When they were trying to come change the towels here in Indianapolis. Not at the same hotel, but just across the convention center from my partner, my buddy, my colleague, our Big Ten insider, Reiner Saban. Reiner, hopefully you have your Do Not Disturb sign up, unlike I.
I don't, but I already had my housekeeping done, so I don't have to worry about that.
They were timely. In your building. You thought I was high and mighty, and I think you are in the nicer place. But it's okay. So 12:55 p.m. currently, Wednesday, February 28th. And we're going to call it day one from the Combine. Coaches have been here. GMs have been here. You have been here, Reiner. You were here really all day yesterday, Tuesday. So I should let you sort of lay the groundwork. However, it has been 88 days since we all were here, right, for the Big Ten championship, 87 days since Michigan found out who it was playing in the college football playoff. I think that's where we'll start today. That was kind of what was in the air this morning. Felt like home is what they were saying, Reiner.
Yeah, I mean, obviously having 18 players off the roster, I mean, circulating in Indianapolis. I don't know if everybody's all here yet, given the fact that the offensive linemen aren't scheduled to work out until the very end. So that's 6 guys right there. But, you know, again, it's going to be quite a contingent here. I mean, obviously record setting for any school to have that many players there. So, yeah, I mean, it feels probably like a reunion of sorts for them, although it hasn't been much time since they won the championship on January 8th.
Right. It's been about 4 to 5 weeks. Well, since then, I guess 5 or 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this. You hear these sounds now. Let's leave this in here. Now my hotel phone is ringing. Let's see what this is. Hello? This is. No. It was not. No, so this is not going to be able to stay in the pod. So, crisis averted. Had to throw that phone call on mute real quick. There was little hotel room snafu, but we're all good. It's all squared away. You would think, Reiner, with how often we've been in Indianapolis, they would just know by now that we're coming back, that we're staying for a long time, and that's really what we were just talking about. 3 straight Big Ten championships. The media days have been here. Now the Combine. This is trip. And when they play in Bloomington, when they played at IU last year, it can be kind of expensive to stay in Bloomington. So I stay in Indy. So this is trip number 7, I believe, to Indianapolis in the last couple of years. Just so it's not just the players.
I mean, the old joke about Michigan before 2021 is that they had the GPS to Indianapolis or they knew how to get there because they hadn't made it to the Big Ten title game for all those years. And so it's weird looking back on, you know, where they were, you know, at 2021 when at Big Ten Media Day when Jim Harbaugh said regarding Ohio State, they were going to try to do it or die trying, beat them. And, you know, now they've got the upper hand in the rivalry. And I think that's the narrative. I mean, you'll probably hear that over the course of the week with the Ohio State players. I mean, I'm sure they'll be asked about, you know, some of them didn't ever get any gold pants. So, you know, if they were juniors entering the draft early, you know, they're not going to have any gold pants. So it's a pretty strange thing to think about when you think about Indianapolis and as it relates to Michigan.
It did switch fast. The GPS has been stuck in Indianapolis. Although you spoke to some players today, and we can maybe get into that later. And I know you'll write about it. Just sort of asking how Michigan can keep this on track, right? How they can continue to make Indianapolis just another stop in their schedule. And there are tons of players, as we just talked about, who are coming down here or already down this week. Yet one of the discussions is how many of them are top tier guys, right? And so I think that's one of the three kind of major talking points of this week that we'll sort of look at today. Of course, the top guy is JJ McCarthy. We will get to him, but another discussion is, Reiner, are there other top prospects in this team, and who are they? I'll list a few names. Potentially, we spoke to a couple of them this morning. I think if you're looking at top 2-round guys, there's really 5 who Michigan could have. JJ, for sure. Then some combination of Junior Colson, Roman Wilson, Chris Jenkins, and Mikey Sainristil. Do you think any or all of them go in that first, second round sort of range?
I think, maybe a couple of them, Junior Colson, maybe Roman Wilson. I'm still a little bit dubious about Sainristil just because of his size, and I don't know how he's going to test out. And Chris Jenkins, the productivity just wasn't there necessarily, and he might slip to the third. I could see that potentially being a thing, especially because he's really hasn't distinguished himself as a pass rusher per se, and that's a lot what they're looking for with defensive tackles at the NFL level now. I mean, Chris Jones being a really good example. I mean, even McNeil with the Lions, showed some ability in that, capacity too. And and Quinton Williams is a good example. I covered him in Alabama, and he was a person that really drove up his draft stock just because of his pass rushing ability. It's obviously much easier to get to the quarterback from that position, more of a direct line than, say, looping around, and that's where the game is kind of going, which is why you're getting guards getting paid a lot more than they used to be comparatively to the tackle positions, because you're starting to see more of these interior pass rushers. So that's where I think Chris Jenkins has to really, prove himself, I guess. And I don't know if he's going to be able to do that in the pre-draft process, because there's not really an ability to kind of show that you can rush the quarterback during
you think, and you kind of figure he'll interview well, right? He's good. He's a good speaker, very likable person, smart young man. However, it's going to be, and each year is always an interesting exercise in production versus potential, right? And I think those two guys who you just said are going to be such a great specific exercise within the greater exercise, right? Like you have a guy like Mikey Sainristil, who will come in obviously undersized, probably somewhere 5'10", 5'11", 180 pounds ish. Maybe he put on a little more weight. Maybe he can get some cardboard under his socks, but he's a small dude. But when he was on the field, nothing but production. I would say the best nickel in the nation this year. Just elite. Tackler in space, ball skills. To be able to cover slot receivers and still like hang with guys who are bigger than him on the outside. Just tremendous. But then you got Chris Jenkins, who I can tell you they're testing tomorrow, Thursday. People will be drooling over his numbers. Book it. Yeah, that is a certainty, right? And so there are always those guys who are really good physical specimens. And Jenkins, it's why he was on the Athletics top 10 freaks list. He is that. So can that help him offset what was a year of, to be frank, not the production he anticipated. He had 36 tackles, I believe, but just 4 for loss, only 2 sacks. And to your point, that's not going to get it done. But just quickly to interject this greater thought from today, and it's a story I'm working on for this afternoon, just about the defensive line across the board. You cannot just, there's a line that goes women lie, men lie, numbers don't lie. Well, maybe these numbers do lie, right? Because Michigan had so many guys that it rotated with the rally group. There was not the opportunity to sort of rack up those same stats. So if they were, a lot of these guys weren't playing in the fourth quarter to Penn State. And so with the depth, with the size of the leads, with just so many factors led to those numbers. Now there were more opportunities for Jenkins to have bigger numbers, but just something else to keep in mind. And they said that those guys don't worry about that impacting them, because they said, as Jalen Harrell told me, he said, like, NFL guys watch film. They can turn on the tape. And
sure. I would say also, but the counter argument to that is that, I mean, are these guys a product of the fact that they were playing on a really good defense and were surrounded by really good players? And then the other counter argument would be that they should have been able to tee off on guys to get a bunch of sacks, considering that they were up big on a lot of these teams, so that these other teams were in passing situations constantly.
Yeah, but you saw just like me. I mean, teams like Minnesota and Michigan State and Indiana. Like, I mean, just throwing bubble screen. Like, you cannot sack them. Like, they will not. That's true. Quarterback, right? Like, they did. There was a lot of that this year.
True, and then that was the game plan against them. And so, I mean, like, the question is, again, how are they going to evaluate these guys? Based on the fact of all this other information. And that's why, I mean, football is a lot different than baseball and evaluation. Like, you can't really use analytics as much. It's tough because, I mean, the numbers are so much affected by everybody else on the field. And so, and there's a lot of different, you can't isolate situations in the same way you can with baseball and even basketball. Yeah.
Right. And I think it was John Lynch, the general manager, who said there were what was the quote, some blue chip prospects from Michigan in their contingent.
Right.
But I don't. But other than JJ, and I guess we'll get to him in just a minute. It doesn't feel like, I mean, even he certainly is not surefire, but it doesn't feel like there's a guy. I mean, there's no Aiden Hutchinson, right? Even though he didn't have the career in Ann Arbor many would have liked. Rashawn Gary, people felt pretty strongly like, all right, he'll develop and he'll be great. I don't know if you were putting your money on one guy, Reiner, to be a cornerstone, one of the cornerstones, like big, good second contract guy. Who would that be?
I mean, probably Colson, or, I mean, San Russell. I think I'll just be in the league for a long time just because of his savvy and being around the ball. I mean, probably could be used on special teams. Also, you can see Michael Barrett maybe hanging around quite a bit on special teams too. I mean, being like a Matthew Slater type player. I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, like, McCarthy, I mean, I would think he would probably be good enough to stick around for a second contract. But yeah, I would probably go with Colson as probably being the guy that I could see just, playing, because, I mean, again, he's played through injuries too. And so there's the durability factor that he can seem to withstand pain. And so that's not really a issue with him. And so I can definitely see that.
Right. And then I'd say, health permitting, Zach Zinter would be another candidate. I even wonder how someone, I just don't know, athletic, like, it's weird to use the word athletically, like Carson Barnhart, someone who is so versatile. I just wonder if he might be able to, if you can just find somewhere on the line with just how much he moves, or Trente Jones, even though they're not these guys and who can just, I'm not saying be a cornerstone, but just Michigan, like, when you look how far, there are 12 guys at least who could sign a second contract in the NFL and would not be surprising, at least to me. But the one everybody wants to hear about is JJ McCarthy. He kind of feels like the lightning rod of the NFL Combine to me, Reiner. He's the one he is the quarterback who's performing. And as our producer who put in our show notes, Andrew Burkle, the wonderful Andrew Burkle, it feels like everybody has an opinion on JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a lot of people are kind of torn on JJ McCarthy because they see some of the physical ability, but they also haven't seen enough of it on a consistent basis as it relates to him leading Michigan's offense. Obviously, he played within the confines of an offense that primarily wanted to run the football. So they didn't get to see him in the same way that they get to see most of these big time quarterback prospects that come out of the draft. And so, yeah, there's a lot of intrigue about him in general, just about how he will translate to the NFL level if he can handle a 35 to 45 pass attempt game on a consistent basis without getting into trouble. That's the question. I mean, whether he will get into dodgy situations, and also his body type. I mean, a lot of people think he's a little slight, it doesn't have the overall physical build of like some of these bigger quarterbacks that you see in the NFL level, like, Josh Allen and such. But I mean, he sure has arm talent and at times incredible accuracy. His decision-making is a question, and, there's not enough evidence in some ways for some people to make, firm conclusions on him. So I think that's why he's such a compelling player and also polarizing player in this draft.
It feels like that's why he's the one who feels like he needs to throw here.
Sure.
Right? Because when we ask Junior Colson or his teammates, or when reporters did, a common response was, well, whenever we did need him to make the plays, he did. Right? Alabama, for instance, Ohio State, big throws both years, and NFL throws, right? Money throws. A lot of times he was, if you remember early in the year, on 3rd and 7 or longer, his stats were absurd. Like at one point he was 17 of 18 or something for 300 some yards and 4 touchdowns, no picks. So there is something to be said for that. But 3rd and 7 against Bowling Green is very different than playing the SEC gauntlet. We've had this discussion before, right? We've had this conversation before. And I don't know what JJ is going to interview extremely well. He is going to, I think he's going to do nothing but help himself in the draft process because there's no defense. There's no opportunity to make that. What kind of questionable throw is that? There are just chances to, of course, there are chances to not look accurate, but we know he is accurate. There are chances to not be fast, but he has been fast, and this is the chance to show that. And so it just feels like there is an opportunity for him to rise. Do we want to just sort of plant our flag, take a little guess here at where he goes? That's fun. We didn't even talk about that. Where do you think JJ goes, Reiner?
Which team?
I will allow a draft slot or a team. I would prefer both.
Somewhere I think in the maybe 11 to 15 range. That's where I'm going to peg him somewhere.
Like Denver.
Yeah, maybe the Broncos. I could see Sean Payton being somewhat interested in his skills. Maybe thinking he could be kind of like a Drew Brees type, for his offense. But yeah, I don't know. What teams would be in the market necessarily for him. I know Daniel Jeremiah had him with number 8 with the Falcons, but the Falcons could be in the market for Justin Fields or somebody else like that. So, there's so much between now and then it's going to shake up, and, who knows what, will come out. There's always that crazy story that ends up happening or, somebody ends up dropping or, you saw with Will Levis, last year too. You just don't know when there's, what could prompt a fall of some sort that we just don't know. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where, but yeah, right now I'm pegging somewhere between the 11 and 15 range.
I see that as well. There are so many fun outcomes, right? Like I think Atlanta would be an interesting spot. Just there's a ton around him, young running back, tight ends, wide receivers, weapons. But then like, what if you just went the total opposite end of the spectrum? Now, I don't know that this franchise would do this. What if you look at like the New York Jets, right? And Aaron Rodgers maybe has 1 year left. I think they kind of feel like they need to win now with Rodgers, and I don't know if they're going to use that 10th pick like a top 10 capital. Like they should probably use it to protect him. But if somehow, I don't know their exact financial situation, but like what if JJ could learn for a little bit under Aaron Rodgers, a guy who he's not totally dissimilar to?
I mean,
Is that a horrible?
No, it's a good. I mean, it's a good idea, but it's not going to happen because I mean that's what the Packers try to do with Jordan Love, and Rodgers is pissed about that, and so
it's a very different point in his career. It's very different.
No, but I mean, like, why would he want to have the same situation play out when, again, he's at the tail end of his career, and the whole idea was for him to go to this new franchise and win, and like, I just don't see him being, the nice mentor, and just shepherding young JJ McCarthy, through the trial.
But if you want a coach like a team who, I mean, their offense has been non-existent, but like a very reliable defense, right? Complementary football. He wouldn't necessarily have to do it all immediately. I'm just,
I mean,
just an idea. I'm not. That's not where I want. Like, that's not where I'm planning it. But it'd be fun. That'd be interesting. That would be fun.
Yeah.
So let's look at the rest of the week ahead, Reiner, and then we can let the people go on their merry way. So interviews, whoever has interviewed on day X will then perform on the field in day Y, if that makes sense. So today it was linebackers and defensive linemen. They will undergo the 40s and the jumps and the running and all the combine actual physical testing tomorrow. And then it is tight ends and defensive backs, Reiner, yes, tomorrow, who we will interview, which means AJ Barner, Mikey Sainristil, Josh Wallace. And then really that next day is when things get going on Friday. Skill positions interview. We will talk to JJ, Blake, and Roman all in like a 80-minute period, which is who everybody wants to hear from.
Right, and it's a made-for-TV event. I mean, that's what the Combine has become because they moved all the field drills to the evening, and now you got the marquee players on Saturday evening in prime time, basically. And that's what they want. I mean, that's why. I mean, you have these maybe less significant position groups as far as less. I wouldn't say significant, but less sexy, I guess. That are happening at the outset with that are basically lead-ins to the main event, which is obviously the quarterbacks, running backs, and receivers, and then then at the end you have offensive linemen going, and so it's the NFL has done a good job of having these kind of tentpole events. It seems like every month or some kind of version of it. And, that's the whole idea, is to kind of keep the NFL at the forefront of everybody's minds month after month. I mean, again, you have free agency and the owners meetings in March, and then you have the draft in April, and then you have rookie mini camp, right after that in May, OTAs, and then in June you have the actual mini camp, and then July is franchise tag, and then you have the training camp, and then preseason, and it goes on. And so it's a full year, and this is what the NFL has done. I mean, the NFL Combine, 40 years ago was nothing. I mean, it was like they were very informal. Very few reporters covered it or even really knew much about it. Now it's like it's a big football convention here.
Yeah. It has been in Indianapolis since 1987, Reiner. I don't know if you knew.
Yeah, I mean, they've had it in New Orleans, I think, before that, and it was like Indianapolis has become the home of it. They've talked about moving it out of Indianapolis, but I mean, I think the infrastructure is in place here where they can do all the medical stuff. In addition to having the convention center attached to Lucas Oil and the hotel capacity to handle everything. And so I think it's...
And just the Midwest geographically for when you get the whole NFL together. It's better than putting it in Seattle or something.
And so, they know how to run the event. And so it's a big, again, a place where, you've got this intersection between college and the NFL happening but it's really an NFL centric event, and you have everybody here.
Yeah, I say they tell you they know how to run the event. They could use a few more signs. This convention center is bigger than O'Hare. And I mean, and you just forget. I mean, I guess technically my hotel's not in the convention center. I mean, I'm connecting through all these buildings, going through garages and elevators and up and down. And this is where people are telling me, and we made it. But it shouldn't have taken as long as it did. And there are people who have like people, my mother and sister, which is not saying much, like will turn to me for sense of direction, right? Like I don't have a horrible sense of direction. Like and I was completely turned around in this convention center. I got to admit,
you need a Sherpa. Yeah.
I do. You were ahead of me. That's why we need to stay in the same hotel. When one goes down, we all go down. That's how I avoid falling, right? Just find the nearest person. It's like when you're running away from a bear. You don't need to be faster than the bear. You just need to be faster than the next.
I was trying to get down here in case Jim Harbaugh talked, but of course he did not. So, which I find quite bizarre considering that he is a new coach, and some of these guys do end up talking to the press and having a press conference there. I mean, I think it's good business on the NFL.
Same with Mike McDonald, though, right? Also,
he didn't show. I mean, that's the difference.
Not here, yeah.
Jim Harbaugh is actually on site at the combine. So I mean, in theory, like you would think that every coach and general manager on site would be obligated to talk, but that is not the case. So if Jim Harbaugh is not obligated to talk, he won't.
Well, I thought they'd be obligated to talk just period. I thought this was just like an NFL sanctioned event. Like coaches, GMs, you got to be here. You got to talk.
The NFL does have mandates, during the season they have to speak
exactly
a number of times, and so you think at these temple events, like especially if they're registered, they have a credential, and they're on site, that they would have to be obligated to talk. But that is not the case.
Who knows? All right. Well, that'll do it for day one from the combine. TBD if there is more podcasts to come. I mean, we'd like to say, yes, certainly we're going to do one tomorrow or Friday, but it's just, there's a lot happening. There's a lot of moving parts, and there's not just 3 or 4 people down here, right? There are 18 players to keep track of, coaches as well. And so we're just going to try to see what we deem to be interesting enough to talk about it on this. Of course, you know where to go to get all the actual coverage, all the written coverage, I should say. That's freep.com on our Wolverines page. I think that's pretty much where we can wrap it. We need to give our thanks to our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery-Nichols, executive editor, Anjanette Delgado, sports editor, Kirkland Crawford, audio engineer, Robin Chan, editor and producer, Andrew Burkle, and my co-host, Reiner Sabin. I'm Tony Garcia. Please rate, review, subscribe, wherever you get Hail Yes. We will continue to try and keep this podcast going throughout the offseason. It's not the same as when Michigan's on a national championship run, but there's still tons to talk about, and that's what we will continue to do. So thanks. Have a good day. Talk to you soon.